Yo, my guy Jesse. How are we doing today, Playboy?
Shit, my G, another day in the grind. How about yourself?
I've never been more tired and more excited at the same time. I'm on that Eddie Murphy delirious juice right now, hot on the stage with the leather pants on at the Apollo. Like,
That's real. Like I'm moving off of 3 hours of sleep from last night. It is grind season for sure. Because again, on the other side of that 3 years is a whole nother life, like a whole nother existence that just kind of looking at how the economy and the world events and everything are kind of playing out. It's really going to be a whole different world when all of this stuff shakes out. It's happening right now. Like we've been kind of chronicling it since InvestFest last year, but as the weeks go on, it's not getting better. And that's why we continue to talk about decline that we're experiencing, because I'm not trying to be on the other side with a small group of us that figured it out and leveraged what was going on while everybody else is suffering and, committing suicide and shit because their life is in a space that they never could have imagined. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to see as many folks that look like you and I on the other side of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I cannot believe I just hit that lick. Like when preparation meets opportunity, I can't believe I just hit that lick.
that's serious, man. We're moving in a space where we're selfishly unselfish. All leadership starts with self-leadership. So if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. If you can't give to yourself, you can't give to others. So right now we are locked in so we could give to self, and then we have the option to give to many others. So with that being said, I gotta introduce my guy. For everybody who's new around here, my dude, Jesse Bullock, he is one of the best in the business when it comes to helping you take your business and extract intrinsic enterprise value. We say it on this podcast many, many times. A business is the best asset most of you will ever own or ever get exposed to. So understanding KPIs, how to engage employees, when you need to hire more employees, when you need to fire employees, and everything around that, the metrics, the marketing, the funnels, the whole shebang. There's nobody better to hire than Bullseye Consulting to take you from where you are to where you want to be.
My man Earl over on the tax side. So following Enron, that whole deal that put Martha Stewart in prison for, however long that she served, the government changed the laws, the rules on who can do what. So one of the things that led to Enron being what Enron was is you had the tax compliance and reporting folks as the same folks as the strategists. So following all of that playing out, it's now illegal for the compliance reporting officer to be the same person as the strategist. It has to be a separate entity. So when I hear people, business owners that are like, yeah, man, I got my CPA and, they take care of all of my tax stuff for me, an admission of a misunderstanding of how all of this stuff is structured, because a CPA is a bona fide scorekeeper and reporter to the IRS. They are a referee. They are not going out on the offense, seeking out the opportunity to reduce and or eliminate tax exposure. That's where my man Earl comes in at, the owner and visionary of Tax Erasers. So if you want to go into wealth building with a proactive game plan to keep Uncle Sam out your pockets, that's my man you need to speak with.
Appreciate the message, brother. Remember, y'all, the quickest way to double your wealth is to cut your tax liability in half. And as you can see, we get into some really actionable information here. So I want to go ahead and hit you with this disclaimer, and then we can really hop into the episode because we got some hot topics that you need to know because you know where to come for the hot stuff. So look, we always encourage you guys to work with licensed professionals with a track record of success, licensed and bonded in cases where need be. We also highly encourage you to do your own research, because as you learn more, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community.
Already. So my brother, during pre-production, you was dropping gems per usual. How has your week been from the last time that we got together for this here program?
Look, last week was fire. Went to a local mixer, helped a good friend out. He goes by CB the Creative. That brother runs so many events, does so much for the community, and that was cool. What came from that was an invite to a private, high level, high net worth mixer. And at this mixer, I'm talking about 20, 30 plus Lamborghinis, Rolls Royces, and whatnot. People that are there are like, yeah, we only brought a couple of our Lamborghinis today. A couple? Like, how many you had? It was one of the most incredible business environments I've ever been in. No one's gatekeeping, no one's leading with their ego. People are so happy to meet you, to know what you do, and to plug you into others that could use your service, or vice versa. Maybe you need their service. And it really makes me think about, there was just one guy that stood out that was not the best person in the world. I don't know if he was having an off day. I don't know if he was coked up, because he was kind of, he had that Wolf of Wall Street going. He had the tunnel vision where he's like, this is what I do. And we're like, okay, cool. So what other ways do you serve your clients? What do you do after you get that? He's like, no, after I do that, I closed it. Yes. And then you got a commission check. After you set your process up, what do you do for your clients? That's normally my end when it comes to tax strategy. You got somebody a loan for $2 million. What do you do after that? So you don't help them with their taxes? No. You just help scale a business 300%. What do you do after that? Were you doing proactive tax strategy during the whole year? Because you knew they were going to make $1 million. You knew they were going to make 2, 3, 4, 5 million. And you weren't tax planning with that? I would love to help you, get rid of that tax liability, make you the rock star to your client because you went out and got me. And then I can create more money and more space for you to use in marketing, machinery, hiring human capital, whatever you want to do. Damn, that makes sense. Now, this gentleman was so hyper focused on his thing that no one wanted to do business with him. Almost every person I talk to there, what do you do? Actually, I'm really curious on what you're doing. They start telling me about it. How'd you get into that? Okay, so does your wife work with you? Really? Do you guys have a family? What do y'all like to do on the weekend? And connect with them on a real level to see if I like your energy and if I even want to do business with you from the jump. Because you can't do business with everybody. Everybody can't go. It's just a fact of life. And then once it comes back to me, what do you do? I help really intelligent people pay far less in their taxes while staying fundable, staying liquid so they could scale and grow their wealth. Wow, we need that. We just fired 5 CPAs in a row. And it's like, were you trying to make a CPA do your tax plans? Yeah, that's not what a CPA does. They keep us out of prison. They're compliance officers. They're recorders, or I like to call them historians. They tell you what already happened and they write it down and they send it to the IRS. So it was interesting. And I had a couple younger guys there where I got to see what he's doing. Don't ever be that guy where you only look at networking directly to put money in your pocket. Look, we're both free commerce, okay? So we like to make money and we like for you to make money. That's why we have this program here. But don't be too close to the trees to see the forest, baby. So it's awesome, man. Just to land that plane, we had a couple things in the tax planning business go left where certain vendors that were putting up capital for us, we had one who is really, really close to some of the older partners in the tax firm. They just blew the deal up. We have everything sewed up. We have all the infrastructure we need for the tiny home component, because you can use that in the big, beautiful bill to offset taxes. We got everything set up. We got this beautiful resort where the tiny homes go. Is really, really close to the factory. So we're saving a ton on the cost of shipping those materials, the manpower to do it. Like it's an ideal dream. And then the tiny home resort is turning out like Airbnb money, where each unit, we're talking about 250, 300 a night. So it's a dream deal. We told them how much capital we need. We showed them our track record where, hey, we've done well over $1 billion in sales of a product that's not as good as this. Our tiny home tax plans not only offset taxes, but they also give the client about $3,000 a month in passive income. So you're wiping away your taxes and getting residuals. That's a good day. These guys blew the deal up. Initially, we told them, look, our clients are doing this to offset their taxes. We want to have it where clients putting down 10% or less. Why? Because if I offset the client's tax liability and then I tell them, hey, you got to put 10% down, they essentially have a 10% tax, right? These guys blew up the deal and they want them to put it at 30%. So you mean to tell me I'm going to get someone out of the 37% tax bracket to put down 30%? The math is not math. It completely destroys the strategy. So we won't be going with them. The beautiful thing is that at this mixer, got there very early. I wanted to help set up. I wanted to help in any way that I could to add value. End up meeting the gentleman and his wife that runs it. Guess what they do? They own a lending company. So it's serendipity. We already got the deal set up where the initial meeting happened today. And then I happen to have another partner at the tax firm where he's setting up a different strategy. And he wants to set up two different strategies. He needs about $50 million for each one. I get to bring the capital to the table now. And if these deals go through, when you bring $50 million deals, man, you get some new wheels. So I'm just excited, brother. I just feel like I'm moving in my purpose. And, I love what we're doing here because we're building a business together while we're building separate businesses apart, while we're helping other individuals build their businesses.
And at the core of that is because when we talk about the asset class, when doing it the right way, there is no greater asset than, what we all respectively see in the mirror. Like when we're standing in the mirror, that reflection is our greatest asset when leveraged properly, which, that's like an interesting concept because, there are a lot of people that when they wake up, like when they walking around, they hope to get into a major car accident that results in a major insurance payout, because that's going to be the greatest opportunity that they have to have any significant financial shift in their life. Like I thought about that because, like, for me, absolutely insane. But like I thought it because like I can't be getting sick. Like I can't, like, bruh, like I got too much shit to do. Like for real. I got too much impact to have on society, our ecosystem. You know what I mean? Like I got too much of God's work left in me. And that comes from the direct investments into self. So like as you're sharing being in that room, if had you not done the work on yourself, there would have been certain opportunities that would be available for you just from proximity. But if you would have had the mindset to actually leverage the smaller opportunity if you had not invested in yourself versus fully understanding the assignment, like knowing how you need to carry yourself in that room, knowing how you need to build the relationships, because our network is closely intertwined with our net worth. You understand that, but most importantly, as you're building the relationships and networking for your net worth, you truly can provide significant value to the people that are in that room that has all of these different resources and connections and opportunities, but by the value that you have invested in yourself to be able to provide to the ecosystem, you just kind of get to see how it all flows together. So that is something that we have in our control, is how much that we choose to invest into becoming the best form of ourselves. So, in these times, I know I was talking about how, on how things are going to be on the other side. Again, these are the times we can be investing in ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's no shortage of books and information, and the way that AI is set up these days, we have the ability to become masters of whatever it is that we choose to master. So it really isn't an excuse that any justifiable excuse for us to not, if we can't build wealth through building by generating more value into assets that we own, then we can, at a very minimum, invest into ourselves to become the very best version of ourselves so that we can contribute ecosystem as opposed to just taking from it.
I think that's so big, man. You're really, alluding to the idea that we've both completely bought in. We are producers first, consumers second. And I think the beginning, the synthesis of getting to that point is adding to self. Because as you're building your value, one day you realize, and I mean in the most literal sense, you realize the weight and the worth of your time. You realize I just can't be talking to anybody. I can't just be watching anything. I can't just be reading anything. I have people that are very well-intentioned and intelligent people. You got to read this book. It's incredible. What's it about? Oh man, it's this man, and hold on. Is this a work of nonfiction or fiction? It's fiction. Does it have some mind-blowing, paradigm-shifting thing that you gain from seeing the story? No, but it's so engulfing. It's like, okay, so this is like an entertainment thing. Yes. Okay, I'm going to put it on my list for things that I read for entertainment. But right now, that's not the priority. I love basketball so much. I missed the Spurs game, the last game, because I was doing business. I'm not worried about somebody else's championship before I get my own championship ring. So we got to guard our time, but we have to guard our mind. When somebody tells you you should read this book, you should ask them why. How would this serve me? These are my current goals right now. How does this particular book serve me? And a lot of people are going to sit back and they're going to be thrown off because they're used to just giving advice like, go to this pizza restaurant, get this yogurt, which is fine. Food is food. You know what I mean? But we're talking about, I know what my time is worth. And when I'm dialed in, my time is over $1,000 an hour that I'm billing people. I'm putting together these really, they're simple to me, but these complex retirement plans where I'm like, okay, you got a 401k, you got a crappy whole life policy, and you're on Social Security, and we don't want to cross the IRMA threshold and make your Social Security 85% taxable. Cool. Watch this. And I start putting the pieces together and make a plan for them. And they're very happy. They get everything that they want. And a lot of times it's a really, really low fee that goes into what the client's actually paying. But what these different vendors, these different multi-billion and sometimes trillion-dollar institutions have to pay me to put it together, to put the money in their coffers, because we all know your money's not sitting there. Your money is making money. That's why it's called currency. It's meant to flow, ebb and flow in and out. That's thousands and thousands of dollars. My number one guy this month right now, one of his checks from helping out a high net worth client is going to be about $52,000 this month. It took him probably 6 hours to do that case. So we have to be mindful of our time, where I just can't be doing anything. I'm not trying to be snooty or uppity or whatever other adjective that you try to put on me, because you're not locked in on your dream.
Man, bruh. That kind of takes my mind to capacity, because we're building up the value within ourselves. It gets to a space where the demand for said value outpaces the capacity to actually keep up with it, which is the critical piece of and when I wore the uniform, I had to like really live this lifestyle of decentralized command, which basically says if all decisions flow through one individual, then a bottleneck is just built into the framework inherently. Whereas when there is a systems and process framework that folks can get plugged, that they can just kind of get plugged and played into, it creates the capability to actually keep up with demand. So how that's relative to what it is that we're talking about now, going back to being able to provide value, investing in self, relationships, all of the things that lead towards wealth building, key element of actually building a team that understands the assignment. So as I kind of think about where I'm at in growing my team and the commitment so tomorrow is my birthday, and
hey, my guy,
appreciate you. My lead girl, like, she reminds me of myself, the way that she invests in herself, the way that she takes opportunity seriously, the way that she brings herself to every situation and challenge that's in front of her. Like, she wrote me a beautiful birthday message, and she spoke about the work that I do and the impact that it provides to those that I work with, because she sees it firsthand. Like, she's dealing with all of the administrative pieces of what it is that I do. So like, she sees it, she hears what our clients say about the things that we're doing. In her message, she wrote about how feeling that she gets from having the opportunity, because that's what's been laid out, the opportunity for her to move past, because that line, there's a Hove line for everything. Hove did that, so hopefully you ain't got to go through that. I had to, like, really out the mud, and still am learning and teaching myself and figuring out things. Absolutely. Well, as that process endures, I give that information to my team. You know what I mean? Like, not only through the conversations that we have, but how those conversations translate into standard operating procedures, so that a structured way of replicating my capacity, growing my capacity, because I have a mini me that she's my first of many, but like, she is learning the things that I've learned through my lens, so that as more demand for the value that I'm able to produce shows up, as it manifests, I'm able to more seamlessly keep up with that demand, because it's not just me. There is a decentralized command infrastructure where my team will know their authority levels on the various things that happen within this business infrastructure that has and is being designed. So again, as we're talking about the concept of truly building wealth through the means that we've been talking about in this episode, it's incredibly invaluable to be planning for war in a time of peace by thinking about how we're able to scale our capacity, the value that we're able to provide to our ecosystem. Now, to that point, as you've been building out your team, you spoke the gentleman that, the $50,000 payout. What would you say has been the most rewarding component of taking it the step further from pouring into your own development to extending that to others?
It's like what I imagine a proud parent moment would be. We're at a professional event and I hear him say something to one of our younger brokers. Maybe it's one of our life insurance only folks that are on the team, or maybe it's someone else in the industry, or it's a potential client. And I hear him say something that I taught him, and he uses it perfectly, so elegantly. And then I'm just smiling. I'm like, man, oh, you killing that. Let me go ahead and step back. I got to stop smiling. Go back into the serious mode because I know that he's got it now. And I know that regardless, hopefully the Most High keeps me around for more years to be able to serve. But if anything ever happened to Earl Harden, he would consistently go out there and make himself 5 figures a month because that's what he's been doing. So he's got the skills now. And we're translating that into him helping me build the brokerage where he's teaching people and he's taking them through waves. He has a new gal that I've only met one time for 40 minutes. And in that 40 minutes, I talked to her for 6 minutes. I haven't really done too much. I'm not the bottleneck. This gal is brand new, not very experienced in the industry. And she just made her first $3,000 check. And she's transferring over from being W-2 to being a full-time entrepreneur. So that's a whole journey in itself. But she just made her first $3,000 in a week. And I was on fire seeing that. It's incredible. And then not to be outdone, there's a guy that I plugged in, new to the industry, and I'm letting him use our systems. Our training is basically our SOP, man. I'm like, I'm not even going to talk to you that much. He just made his first 1,700 helping clients out. And I'm like, that's amazing. Because I talked to him even less than her. Now, if they call me, if they have issues, if they have a problem, of course I'm going to lead them. If I see them doing something that is legally not on par, of course I'm going to hop in. And I have systems to catch that. But seeing these people work independently of me, because of, like you said, us going through the mud, man, it is so rewarding. And it has me at the place where I just want to get to the next level. I want to get that extra side account back to 50, 75K so I could really invest in technology and leads. And then I could just attract even more talent. And I could take some of the best MLOs, some of the best realtors, maybe some fractional CFOs, bring them over and just plug them in, teach them how to do it, give them the best lead source, and have a team where everybody's doing 50K a month. Be on Good Morning America. Thank you.
And everything that you're describing there, I've been very much so kind of immersed in the conversation around like recruiting and retention engines within business, because sourcing talent can be a bitch. Like it's a process truly to really attract and to retain the top talent. And the price of not being able to do so is a very high price. So, the framework, that decentralized command piece that I was just speaking to, is vitally essential to having what's needed in place to actually attract the attention of talented folks that actually want more for themselves. But most importantly, once they get exposed, the inner workings of that framework that attracted them, they ain't going a damn place because the return is too immense. You know what I'm saying?
I was always taught you give somebody all the knowledge and skills they need to leave and just treat them in a way where they would never want to. Let smart people do what smart people do. I've really only had maybe one person get trained in my organization and go somewhere else and stay in the same industry. And that is in 10 years. I've only had one person do that. If someone's ever left my team, my organization, it was to do something different. And that's okay. So I'm like, I get it. This is not for everybody. Everybody's not built for this. I get excited. I get jacked up. And when I was on the phones a lot back in the day, If somebody called me out of my name, called me something crazy, oh man, I have fun with them. I called them right back. Oh, the line broke up. I know you really want this service, so I'm gonna start from the top. And I would just, because I feel like mental toughness comes through habitual actions. So if you're gonna hit me with a shot, you coming from the shoulders, I'm coming right back. Now I'm not doing anything nefarious or egregious, but it was just funny to me that some of these folks, like this would be some of the affinity groups I was working with, teachers, firefighters, nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors. I'm like, I got your information from your boss because I'm working with your affinity group solutions. So you gonna call me all crazy, and I'm like, I got your email, like I got all your info. I'm hitting you back. I'm hitting you back, baby, just so I could take my power back. So nobody could ever get the one up on me, because there were days where I made, 450 calls and I talked to 7 people, and all 7 of them were having the worst day of their life. It's like, how do I keep my mind in shark mode? And it was doing that. So it's like, and the other thing was telling myself, like, man, I'm getting to peer into the window of someone's life through a phone call, and they choose to live like this every day, wasting the life that was given to them, and all this opportunity couldn't be me. I got to go harder. So that's how I always looked at those situations, man. I would let them fire me up even more. And I feel like we are leading perfectly into the next thing I wanted to talk about, because we've said the word decentralized about 4 times. And man, we got some movement going on in the crypto world right now that is insane. So have you seen some of these larger institutions, like not the immigration ICE? We're talking about the fund, ICE and CME. Have you been tracking this stuff, bro?
No, this is all new to me.
Look, man, CME Group and ICE Group are huge, multi-billion-dollar trading platforms, and they have the ability to, to bring pools of money so they can play around in the stock market. And what most of these exchanges will do, or brokerage will do, they will make some sort of money off of the nanoseconds between when they think you're going to buy and when you actually buy. So you get ready to look at a stock that you want to buy on an exchange. You're like, okay, it's at $40, $42, I'm gonna get it. Right before you buy it, they buy it at $39 to sell it right back to you. So they're making these little nano transactions over and over again, and it's one of the ways they make billions and billions of dollars. And it's so serious that, on the literal Wall Street, we have a couple trading firms that spent over $30 million to redo the fiber optic lines to make it completely straight, because there's a little bit of a curve in it, and that curve was costing them like 5 nanoseconds. And they calculated that out, carried that out 20 years. They said that could be $1 trillion that we miss out on. That's insane. So these two groups, man, they beef with a organization that's called hyperliquidity. So hyperliquidity is a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange. For people that don't know the difference, the centralized ones are like Coinbase. You create an account, you log in, and they have a lot of control over what you got going on. And until you take your coins or tokens out of there, they own it, and they're able to make yield off of it and do a whole bunch of different stuff. They're basically like a bank with far less insurance, or if you really know what's going on, no insurance, because crypto is still really unregulated. Now, a decentralized exchange is like Uniswap, where you say, hey, I got 10 Ethereum and I'm trying to get one of these. I'm trying to get some ADA. How many ADA can I get for that? And it just swaps through the programming. There's no person involved. There's no control or anything. Now, the downside of completely decentralized exchanges are there's no control. What happens if you meant to put 2 zeros and a one at the end and you only put one? Your coinage is lost into the ether for forever, you know? So this is living in a space where it's decentralized, but it has the familiarity of something that's centralized, where there's a little bit more safety and where you can get on there and you can trade things. You can trade these different artificial stocks. So essentially, so they're called synthetics. Let's say you really wanted to trade Apple, but you ain't got your liquidity set up like that. You don't just have the tens of thousands of dollars. Some people will hop on and buy the crypto synthetic that tracks Apple, and it's way easier to go with that because it tracks a real asset, but you don't have the barrier of entry to get in. So when you're leveraging, like, 2 episodes ago, we talked about futures and how it was basically a means of offsetting risk. Well, when we look at the other side of it, it's also a tool to get leverage, where when you use futures, you're paying a little premium in there, but they might give you 2 times the value of your capital, or 5 or 10. It just depends on what you're trading. So you get 10 times leverage of what you put in there. You put in $100,000 and you win your trade, you're getting paid out like you won $1 million. On the other side, you put $100,000 in, you have 10 times leverage, and you were wrong, you owe $1 million. And that takes us back to like episode 3, where we talked about, that young man that took his life because he was trading with leverage and very quickly ended up $7 million in debt. Thought there's no way I'll ever pay that off, and took his life. So when you're doing these things, you have to be very intelligent. If you can't trade with your own money, you cannot trade with 10 times your money. Okay, simple stuff. So here's why the big organizations are up in arms. They've controlled oil for all this time. What are most of our wars about? Oil. What are most deaths coming from? Oil. Where are all the sanctions in the world? What was France doing to Africa? Not was, because they're still doing it. What is France doing to West Africa? Controlling their oil, controlling these things. So when we have these synthetics that are basically crypto blending over with traditional finance, cryptocurrencies can be traded 24 hours a day. The stock exchange is only open for a certain amount of hours. So there's more money to be made, there's more volatility, there's more dips. When you're trading, volatility is a good thing because it gives you a place to get in and it gives you a place to get out, So these guys ran, took the ball and ran and told their mom because they was getting crossed over. They was getting it put on them. So they went to the SEC and they said, you can't let them do it. It's not safe. It's not safe. It can give countries like Russia access to oil when they're supposed to be sanctioned because they could do it through cryptocurrency. What if Iran came over and they were controlling the oil like they're not controlling the oil already? Well, that's besides the point. So they are currently protesting Hyperliquid right now and its exchange, while simultaneously waiting for approval from the SEC to have their own crypto exchange brokerages that operate 24 hours a day that have synthetics. Could not make this up, brother. So that's what's been going on. It's been a wild thing. There's also something I won't go too deep on, but they have perpetual futures. Because as we learned a few weeks ago about futures, that's you and I when we had that corn example. Look, I know that my harvests are going to vary over time. And I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I'm selling my corn and everyone else is at the same time. Then I'm not going to get as much money for it. So I make a contract with JB. I say, look, brother, I'm going to give you all my corn over the year so you can make all the cereal you need to make. And I'm going to give you this median price. Let's set a contract up. Cool. So you're buying corn that hasn't even happened yet. And we're good with that. We're both winning because you also, as a cereal maker, you don't want to be buying the corn when it's at the highest price possible because you're going to have to pass that on to the end user. That's not good business either. Well, there's an end date to each of these future contracts. Well, not anymore. In the world of synthetics and crypto, we have something that's called perpetual futures. So they can exist into perpetuity for forever. So it means that I have the ability to get a leveraged trade, just like I would in a future contract, but without ever having to own it. So there's a possibility I could pay less premiums and still get access to the spot price. So it's a little different because when you're trading an actual asset, you get that at the end of the day. End of the contract, boom, I'm getting whatever I'm supposed to get, whether it's the money or the asset that's underlying it. Whereas here, they're just looking at constant trading of papers back and forth to make hyper wealth. So, the pot's calling the kettle black once again, brother.
Oh man. So that is definitely one of the great reasons to expand our social circles, because I know that I don't have the bandwidth capacity to leverage any of what you just now described right now, because it requires too much of me to invest in learning all of it, and I just don't have it right now. Like I'm so locked into what it is that we're building. Like I don't even have capacity to truly learn the Bitcoin game the way that I need to know it. But again, by expanding my social circle, I have amazing brothers like yourself that as I have more liquid resources that I'm looking to deploy for investment purposes, will be diversified in the best ways because my mans know this shit.
And the important thing for our classmates to hear, first, I appreciate that. I fully accept all those compliments, brother. I'm just learning and keeping up with these other guys, learning from others. But the important thing for our classmates to hear there, you do not have the time nor the bandwidth to learn it, but you understand that it's something important and it's of value. That's where markets are created. That's why Ian can charge $10,000 for Red Panda. You get in there and he tells you the entry and exit points for 1, 2, and 3 years. So with that, if Ian's telling you, yeah, you can get in right here, you can get into this perpetual future, yeah, you're good. You'll be able to exit in 2027 around April. Your other exit is going to be August 14th. And it should be within 10% of these two numbers right here. You would say, okay, but people will miss out on that because they're not putting the $10,000 in the Red Panda. So it's like, okay, what's more important, your time and what you're doing right now, or exchanging that capital for access? And the answer is going to be completely different depending on what you're doing at that point in time. Right now, like there is so much I want to learn about trading. There's so much that I'm learning about, in my SEPA course, learning about investing in RVs and mobile homes. The other day, I got a crash course in promissory notes inside non-grantor, irrevocable, non-statutory complex trust from one of the best tax attorneys in the nation. And we're just having this conversation. So, of course, I'm taking the opportunity. And I'm like, damn. Main thing's the main thing. Like I got a little bit from him and changed the subject. Man, you've been watching the Spurs? Because I know the most actionable thing for me to do right now is to continue to help other business owners with their tax liability, because that opens all doors for me to be able to do the different financial things for them. And then, that's where I really get paid. No one really gets paid on these tax plans. Well, let me take that back. Nobody gets paid big money twice on a high fee tax plan. Somebody's charging you 50% of what they save you year one. That's cool because you were going to give it to the IRS. Year two, you've already talked to 5 other companies who can do the same thing for you, but they are only charging 30%. 30% makes sense. So nobody gets rich off of a tax plan twice. So it's all the different elements that go into it, whether it's equipment leasing, captive insurance, life insurance, trusts and estate plans, business funding opportunities, fractional CFO opportunities to plug them in a plan, or if you're already doing that. And that's where tax strategists really make their money. So helping you not pay Uncle Sam is really just opening the door to get our funds. And with that being said, in this moment where you are in such a unique space, you are building your own business, you're building other businesses, building a business together, and then you're also taking care of clients for, this consulting company that you have this awesome deal with, and they're gonna have to double up, triple up next year to get you back. We all know that. What do you think you're most excited about, and what epiphanies have you had since you started traveling and working with this particular company's clients?
What we were talking about a little earlier, I'm so excited about truly building my team out, because all of the influx of capital that comes from this contract is being reinvested right back into the business. So right now I'm investing in the framework, the behind the scenes framework of all of the things that need to happen in order for this engine to operate Tesla-like. So once that engine is actually running like a Tesla engine truly, then it'll be actually sourcing the talent here stateside to operate within that framework, to really expand, to really grow, to have a salesperson that is skilled in sales. Because like me personally, I understand that sales is really nothing more than being able to articulate the value proposition. And I articulate my value proposition pretty good, but it's not my preference. Like I prefer to be actually doing the turnarounds in businesses. So to actually have someone that is specifically focused on business development, that's seeking out the next opportunity, that is capitalizing on the current opportunity. Like growing out my team is what I am most excited about, because the things that I'm doing are so much bigger than myself. Like it's an entire ecosystem that's being built. So because it definitely is no shortage of nonsense that I got to deal with from this firm that I'm contracted with. Their internal processes are, it's the stuff that made me resign from the last firm that I worked for in the W-2 capacity. The difference here though is whatever that they got going on, that ain't got shit to do with me. Like I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as those deposits are hitting my bullseye consulting bank account every week, you know what I mean? Like I'm still getting to have the impact directly with the client. So regardless of all of the internal politics, none of that has anything to do with me. Like I said, like I'm independent. So as I think about reinvesting that is coming in, like it's going right back out, you know what I mean, in the form of scaling sustainability. So that is what really invigorates me as I think about, what the future looks like. How about yourself, my brother?
I'm in a similar space, and the reason that I laugh is because you said that ain't got shit to do with me though. Blackest answer of the day. It made me think about in the Black Nerds group, people were like, post your favorite Boondocks quote. And mine was from the Tom, Sarah, and Usher episode when the waiter walks by and said, Riley's like, you let Usher take your girl? Damn, Tom, you a bitch. All that stuff. And Usher goes, shit, wouldn't have been me though. You said you had the same energy there, brother. 100%. All right. So one last thing I wanted to talk about, and I know you're gonna have some points on this. We've been talking about ecosystems this whole episode. We've been talking about building a team. We've been talking about using technology, whether it's leveraging it for wealth or for efficiency. There's been a lot of talk in my tax firm about what AI can do in tax planning. And the interesting thing is that people want one-on-one meetings more than ever because AI is catching up to be able to do some of these tax plans. Doesn't mean it can explain it to you. No. Does it mean it has the vendor relationships to pull it off? No. Doesn't mean there's so many things that it can't do, but it's getting to the point where tax pros are teaching it how to do tax strategy. And it's interesting that I'm seeing a request of more in-person meetings and not Zoom because people want that touch because they can go out and get the information anywhere, but they can't get the human connection with someone that they trust. And I think a lot of companies at this point in time are operating in a space where they're not necessarily trustworthy. So we have Walmart, we have Uber, we have Lyft, all under investigation for what could be a very, very, very large class action lawsuit when it comes to algorithmic pricing. Have you heard anything about this, brother?
Bruh, like you are on top of no, I have not heard that either.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? You brought me onto the podcast, but I take it very seriously. Take it very seriously. So it's great that I've been going to so many mixers because the conversations that I'm having are leading into this stuff, whereas your work with the client is not doing that. And you're unplugged from the world because you're plugged into the work. So algorithmic pricing can be diabolical. It is essentially, kind of like the same effect where right before a hurricane, people start price gouging. Toilet paper used to be $5 for a big pack, then it goes up to 45. And it was something when I was learning microeconomics in college that made me very uncomfortable, but it also made sense. The price gouging, in some areas actually protects folks because people want to go and buy everything up. We saw what happened during lockdown. People have 5 grocery carts full of toilet paper. Like, how much time are you going to spend on the porcelain throne? It's absurd. But when people price gouge and you're looking, it's like $45. Now you just buy one because that's all you really needed anyways. So algorithmic pricing is doing the same thing, but is doing it solely for the purpose of profit. And it can be very nefarious very quickly. When we're talking about Walmart's lawsuit, they have all this access to Google, Meta, all these different things. These companies say they don't communicate. We know it's a damn lie. You Google, does my baby have a fever? Best fever medications for baby. Do I take the baby to the ER or Tylenol? And you put those things in your search bar, and then you go to Google, and they've raised the price of Tylenol 25% because they know you're very likely to buy it. Wow. And they're tracking those cookies. Wow. So you get over there, it's 25, 30% more, and they know you're going to buy it. They know you're very, very likely to buy it. And if you get into a situation where you leave and you already have a Walmart account, they might come back and say, hey, you left this in your cart, we'll give you a special 10% discount. And they're still making 15% more than what it costs before you put the Google search in.
Wow. Bruh, do you think that should be legal?
I do not think it's ethical to change prices in that manner where you're changing it on an individual in their specific circumstance. No. If you're a convenience store and a millionaire comes in to buy ginger ale and a homeless man comes in to buy ginger ale should be $1 for both people, in my opinion, because we're talking about food. Now, if we want to start talking about luxury items and you charge a millionaire and a billionaire a different price, do your thing. But we're talking about food, diapers. I think it's nefarious. And most of the investigative reporting that's been going on with this, there's no responses coming back from Walmart. Now we see a similar thing going on when it comes to Lyft and Uber. So both of them were running negative balance sheets for a few years. I'm like, are they running a negative sheet because they don't want to pay taxes and they don't have a tax strategy? Nobody called me. I could have put them on to something because companies will do that. We got to remember Amazon ran negative for what, 15 years, something like that. They reinvested everything into the business, and Amazon really just started turning a profit, in the 2020s. So that can be a strategy, but it wasn't a strategy for Uber or Lyft. They had a broken model where they, for one reason or another, were not recouping enough revenue. It would have made more sense for them to keep, in my opinion, and I would love yours on this coming from a business coach, for them to keep the enterprise model where they own the cars and they're renting the cars to the drivers, and the drivers are making money in their platform. I thought that vertical integration made a lot more money, but COVID and stuff happened, and then their deal with rent a car and value car and all these different things fell apart. The deal with Tesla fell apart, which is great because Elon is ridiculous. So I'm not an Elon fanboy like everybody else out here, and that's a whole nother conversation. Which next week we'll be talking about how everyone's 401k that has a W-2 is about to prop up the money for the SpaceX IPO. So that's going to be fun to talk about because people had no idea they're participating. Yeah, your stuff got hijacked. Crazy. Uh, so what they started doing, they changed their pricing model and they changed the name to like transparent pricing. That's what it's called, but it's not. So multiple Uber drivers got in the same room. They're all tenured guys that have been driving for 5 years or more, similar vehicles, and they have about the same amount of 5-star rating. Okay. They all click for rides, and the prices varied wildly between what each one got paid for that same ride. Some got paid as little as $5, some got paid over $13 for the exact same rides or the same distance.
Was there a racial component to it?
Well, in this particular case that I saw, they were all white passing guys. Could there be? Sure. And both companies have, when they publish their numbers, that female drivers make 7% less than males. I was like, that's weird that you both have that number. So it is interesting when you look through the statements that these companies have prepared. They kind of tell on themselves and then they try to double back and say, I ain't say that. And it's like, you did right here. Highlight. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this because, we have a current administration that is very pro deregulation where, it may need to come in where we have these things regulated again. No, you can't do algorithmic pricing for staples. And no, you can't do algorithmic pricing for gig workers because, one of the drivers pointed out, he's like, hey, if they're doing this on every ride, this is how many rides I do a day. This is how many rides I do a week. That could be $300 less per month. Or in a high volume situation, it could be thousands of dollars less per month. So he could make $36,000 less in the whole year. And he took just as many rides and drove just as far as the guy next to him. Why is that?
Man, so the technology and the direction that it's going in. So I think about it in the context of, have you ever experienced, washing your hands in a public restroom that has the sensor, they have the sensors? Well, there's been wide reporting historically, Black folks not being able to trigger the water to turn on, not being able to trigger the soap to come out, because when the software was programmed to begin with, it was programmed with skin tone. So it was never even programmed to recognize our tone. Technology is going, and that's why I asked if it was a racial component to it, because if this country hasn't mastered thing, it is the art of racism. So like when I hear that and think about how AI is kind of doing what AI is doing and what it will do in the future, it is going to lower the barrier for covert racism. Is almost impossible to prove because you would have to have firsthand knowledge of the programming that went into said technology. So, I mean, it's all just a vicious, it's a vicious cycle, man.
And I don't know if you caught this. I keep asking, did you see? Did you see Tucker Carlson talking with presidents in West Africa? So he's talking to the president of Zimbabwe. Man, that was. And Tucker Carlson is there to be the moderator and ends up getting slam dunked on, where he asked the president of Zimbabwe, do you think certain races are better than others? Why did you take the land away from the white people in Zimbabwe? And he says, you know, this land has belonged to the people with roots of thousands of years of being here. Then it was colonized, and some of those people stayed behind, and they had the land, and they weren't using the land effectively. So we gave the land back to our people because it's not about race; it's about giving to Zimbabwe. And everyone was clapping and stuff, and you know how Tucker Carlson can get. So he's like getting on him, and and it flips so quickly where he's like, so you're saying, someone is born on a soil that they get all the same rights as other citizens? And it's like a lean in moment, man. And it's like the subject started changing real quick. It was interesting. And then from there, they talked for a while, and the bringing up how much colonial rules and laws still exist. First right of refusal is still going on with France and Sweden and Germany and Spain, where these companies are so deeply entrenched in different African and South American nations that they control things. I want to talk specifically about France because a lot of people don't know. They get overly romanticized. And if you've ever been to France, a lot of like Paris is kind of not the cleanest city. It's a lot of trash. It's a lot of human waste, and it's a whole thing. Anyways, this nation still has the first right of refusal over many West African countries. What is first right of refusal? It gives France the explicit power to control natural resources. So you want to use oil, diamonds, uranium, gold, platinum, because remember, Africa is the only continent so vast that she has never needed to import anything. Everything that you need is there on that continent amongst its 54 different countries. So you want to sell to your neighbor, you want to sell to Uganda, you want to sell to Rwanda, you want to sell to Kenya, you want to do a deal, you want to build a pipeline. You have to ask France for permission first. You have to offer them to be your partner first. They can say no. And then they can also tell you, no, you can't do that deal with Uganda. And then what happens when you don't listen to them? They sanction you. And the president of Zimbabwe was talking about, we've built incredible road structures. We've built this in our city. We've built this in spite of all of the different difficulties and sanctions coming from your European nations. It's like, tell them, brother, like I'm doing this in spite of you. You're not helping me. A lot of people don't realize if I'm sanctioning you to a point where I get 80% of your GDP and then I do a give back thing and it's less than 1% of your GDP and I'm doing that for tax purposes, what? It's such a crazy system where until you can understand some of the macroeconomics that you are forcing these people to be subjugated to your currency, to your rules, and all of your wealth comes from their nation. Because I know there was a point in time where I was in school sitting there wondering, like, how is France and England so powerful? It's so tiny. I understand when they have their big nation, and Napoleon was doing things until he went to Russia. And, the English were doing things until Haitians came up and hit them with the fa, 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 and got them off of the Americas. And then America then in turn let France sanction Haitians, where it took them over 60 years to pay that money back. And then France came back and cleaned out their money again. When we see how Somalia was robbed, people so sad that people just think, oh, those are just wild people. They're savages. You mean the people that had all their money taken out of all of their banks twice? They've gotten most of their crops taken, gold, uranium, silver, boron, almost all of the natural resources that are worth something, no road infrastructures. And then they're still being sanctioned and they're not allowed in the G20. They're not allowed to do these different deals. And you won't let them do deals with China either.
Man, oh man. Well, one of the beauties of this here program is that we are constantly challenging the notion of stepping one's own game up in preparation for the opportunities that the new world will present to us. So from investing in ourselves to building teams to networking to increase net worth to leveraging assets like Bitcoin to understanding how algorithms aren't necessarily going to be solution for everybody. All of this information is invaluable towards actually being prepared for the world that we will live in that is happening right now. So again, we never have an intent to stoke fear or frustration or anger or any of those things. We intend to be a beacon of actionable information, of accountable information that leads to truly building generational wealth through the leveraging of assets. So for those of you that have been rocking with us, we are greatly appreciative. It is not taken for granted in the slightest. Keep listening.